If you're making big business decisions without being able to clearly articulate why things are working or maybe why they're not working, you are going to be running into some issues in your company. So let's get ahead of those. On today's episode of Humans of Growth, I'm joined by Liz Ross, who is the CEO over at Shift Paradigm, to unpack the breakdowns inside of growing companies long before revenue actually flatlines. So we're talking all about decisions made on anecdotes instead of evidence, why marketing and sales teams tend to be out of sync with one another, how data silos quietly slow everything down, and why AI is not here to be your savior when it comes to making bad judgment decisions. If growth is feeling maybe heavier or messier or more complicated than you think it should be, this episode could be your saving grace to help you see what's actually in the way. Let's dive into it. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here and to talk about growth and how to think about it, particularly with everything around us changing.
Absolutely. So, Liz, I introduced a little of the professional side of you, but in a sentence or two, who are you as a human? What is bringing you joy right now?
Well, thank you. The most important thing to know about me is I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have 2 12-year-old, and then I have 2 9-year-old twin daughters. So I have a son and 2 daughters. And, for me, as I think about growth, I think about the future, I am an optimist. I have been since I was a kid, but I'm especially an optimist now that I'm a mom. And so really trying to assess what is the role of humans, what is the role of growth and technology in the world in front of us is where I'm spending all of my time and where, frankly, I'm finding a lot of really exciting paths forward.
So you help a lot of businesses with decision making when it comes to both operations and growth. When you look at all of your clients and industries kind of across the board, what do you see as some of the most common business decisions that are being made off of anecdotes rather than evidence and data?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think that a lot of companies are making decisions on, again, you said anecdotes, things that have worked historically, and or they're making decisions on incomplete data. And so what we see often is sort of it worked like this before, it's going to work that way again. And think about it in the context of a SaaS software company that has really focused, for example, on events or trade shows. Hey, we do this and this happens, and then it drives our pipeline into bookings and ultimately revenue. I think the piece for every company is to find that source of truth, to really allow yourself to be challenged. Is that right? Is that the right expenditure? Whether it's a golf tournament, whether it's original content, whether that's a trade show, whether that's paid advertising, whatever it is. That I think is what's being sort of challenged. And I don't know if we'll have time to get into it, but certainly the curation effect of AI in search is disrupting nearly everything about sort of how companies go to market or think about their growth.
Yeah, you said incomplete data. How do you know if your data is complete?
It's probably not for everybody. So the good news is nobody has it perfect, and there is no sort of Shangri-La state, at least that I think, where it's everything and it's perfect. What I would say, though, is that companies operate off of siloed data. So often the marketing team is making decisions that is data that is either different or completely disconnected from the sales data.
Yep.
For a B2B enterprise, it's a huge problem because the learnings that are happening in that sales team are not getting connected. And it goes from there, right? So whether it's current customers, whether it's sort of who's using your product or who's not going to use your product, if that sort of glue, if you will, in between those data sources doesn't exist, that's what's problematic. So what you want and what you're looking for is not Shangri-La, but what you're looking for is the most complete. set of data that you can, based on stitching all of your sort of sources together.
How do you go about unsiloing marketing and sales? Because you're 100% right, especially in B2B spaces. You have the marketing team doing stuff over here, the sales team doing stuff over here. There's some overlap of marketing is blaming sales, sales is blaming marketing, usually what happens. Yep. Can you give me some examples of what it looks like for marketing and sales to no longer be not separated, but for those data silos to kind of get merged together?
Yeah, we're doing a project for this right this very second for a SaaS-based company in the healthcare space. And what we're doing is creating a golden record. And the golden record is sort of the end state desired sort of about their particular audience. Their TAM is relatively small and they have high penetration, but there are complexities in the buying committee that expand that TAM based on numbers of people or divisions. So what we're doing is creating a golden record. That's something that we're getting buy-in from both marketing and sales so that they can have sort of that data feed come in, and then that allows them to agree on what is an MQL. What we find often is that, there's disagreement. Is this a lead? Is it not? Is it validated? So if we can get everybody aligned around, this is what an MQL looks like, this is the data set that surrounds it, that often is enough to anchor those teams. And then we can obviously put all the data together, figure out the gaps, find out if there needs to be third-party augmentation. But that's really the way we start.
For folks who aren't familiar, can you explain the golden record concept?
Yeah. So the idea is, in any data set, you want to design, if you had your way, what would be the most important things for you to know about that buyer? What are the most important sets of behavior, psychographic data, demographic data, whatever, right? What they've bought before, previously, and it's going to change for every company. But what is the data that allows you to move it from an MQL, a marketing qualified lead, to an SQL, to a sales qualified lead? That is ultimately sort of what the golden record is meant to design. And it looks different for everyone, but it does layer in and give everybody something to anchor to.
Going back to the SaaS example you gave, can you give me some context or an example?
Yeah, so the premise really is marketing is generating leads inside of a specific TAM. And they're doing that to sell their software inside of a healthcare environment. The question then becomes, okay, the lead comes in either through a form fill or through sort of direct marketing. What is it that then that team that, okay, we agree it has these criteria, it's a marketing qualified lead. What does the sales team need in order to move it through their pipeline? So if you think about whether they own other products, is it a competitive data record? Is it what was of interest inside of the owned channels for that marketer? Hey, they clicked on this page, they checked out this feature. Those become data points in the sales process. So I think again, that the goal is to pull through the lead, right? And so for every company, what's the pull through that salesperson is going to use to then have a conversation? Hey, I noticed you were interested in this feature set, this point of differentiation that helps to shape their conversation and ultimately drives that buyer to make that decision. And one of the things that we have seen is that the B2B landscape, particularly, again, in this example, is changing. And it's changing because customers are not buying when they know what to do. They're buying when they know what not to do and what's the least risky decision. So our work has to be about driving trust and those trust signals, which means that if they're anchored in a feature or the salesperson can be more effectively armed and move that growth through to revenue and booking faster if they know what trust signals to pull on.
I love it. So when you de-silo your data. Marketing, sales works together. Operations hopefully works together with everything as well. When leaders in the C-suite and VP level are able to see all of the data, what usually surprises them the most?
Yeah, I think, I've seen so many examples of when companies thought growth was coming from one place. So I'll give you a good example. We worked with another company in the healthcare space selling software, and they believed that paid leads were their most sort of valuable source of revenue. And in their world, they were spending about $30 million on paid leads that would, come in through their website and get, again, turned into an SQL sent out to the sales team. When we actually mapped it, what we were able to find, and again, anecdotally, we all sort of probably head nod, but until you actually map it, we were able to show that organically generated leads, so leads from their content, from, again, that they had created, were 8 times more valuable from a revenue standpoint. Mm-hmm. So then you say, okay, it doesn't mean you take that 30 million to zero, but maybe you take that 30 million to 20 and you take $10 million and invest in your organic content engine to generate more of your own leads. That's the kind of sort of surprise, I think, that can happen when you map things end to end.
Ooh, I love that. And I see this happening within companies so often. It's like, oh, we're investing over here, but what they're investing in is not actually the thing that's driving the revenue at the end of the day.
That's right.
And then it's like, okay, now let's go back to your budget and your team member capacity. How do we adjust this so that we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket by any stretch of the imagination? Zuckerberg could change an algorithm today. Google can change an algorithm tomorrow and something tank. We saw that with search engine optimization. Google changes some things and suddenly websites that were ranking number 1, 2, 3 are not ranking on the first page at all.
Correct.
But with that, how do we do budget allocation that is risk adverse to some degree, but also focusing on the things that we know are bringing the most revenue, even if it's not necessarily revenue where it's let me put $1 in and it's $5 out, sort of like a vending machine, and it may take a little bit more time to get from marketing qualified lead to sales qualified lead.
I think that's right. And I think the key is being open to challenging your assumptions. Because, again, we talk about the power of anecdotes. They're powerful because that's how we've operated for 50 plus years. And so even think about modern day consulting, right? Modern day consulting, Accenture or any of the big four come into your offices and they descend with 1 million people and they interview people. And those people tell them anecdotes. And then those anecdotes are codified. The reality is if the way we go at it is to go through the tech, and we go through the tech to uncover the truth and then match it back to people. But we don't, because you inherently get bias if you get the anecdote and then you're using the data to prove the anecdote versus actually understanding the truth and then understanding the why in the anecdotes, but not looking to verify the anecdote, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. And it's interesting if you look at human behavior, at the end of the day, we're driven by stories. And so storytelling gets integrated into every aspect of our lives and every aspect of our companies. And it's important and we can't ignore it. But when you're making decisions, it's easy to let the stories lead and the data follow, hopefully, when really it's like, how do we look at the data, make the best decisions, and then making sure that the stories and people are not being left behind as we make data-driven decisions. Because there's data-driven decisions that companies of all sizes can make, and it can hurt the people behind it. And so it's a balancing act, I think, a little bit. And we see this in the insurance industry of like, okay, we need to increase profits and we need to do this. Okay, this is the data-driven decision. But also, what is if data wasn't a factor, what would we do based upon people and ethics and values and what's important to us? And then how do we balance the two together?
Yeah, I think, that starts getting into a whole
Can of worms?
prickly web of things. But I think again, in our world, what we say is that our job is to drive growth. And look, every agency, every consultant in the world says they do it. Every single one.
Yep.
What we do is actually get through the tech and prove it. And I think that what most agencies and marketers in general have done is, it's not that we got lazy. And again, I come out of all the agencies. I'm a creative at heart, but we relied on marketing metrics as proxy for growth, and it was separate from, did actual growth happen? And so what I love about the role I'm in now, what I love about Shift, is we actually prove it. And it holds us to a higher standard. It means we have to say, we don't actually think doing X, Y, or Z is going to move the business, so you shouldn't do it. And that's hard, right? Agencies like doing the work. We like getting in that mix. We like being able to earn that revenue. But it does hold us to really a standard of understanding, where does growth come from?
Absolutely. And I think I've started to see over the past couple of years a shift from traditional marketing agencies to go to market, because we're realizing that saying we increased Facebook, Meta, Instagram reach by 10% is great, but we're now starting to be held accountable for actual growth, even though we're not in charge of the sales aspect by any stretch of the imagination. It's like, okay, these are vanity metrics. How is it actually moving the needle in the business? And that's where it's a messy conversation, but attribution comes in to some degree of like, okay, if we're doing this on social media and this on print and this on web and this on TV and 17 other things, how does it all get tracked? Because it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. And know that each of these channels is working in the way we want it to. And if not, how do we adjust? And it's never ever, I've talked to a lot of agencies about attribution, and there's a lot of new software out there where data privacy is no longer a thing. And so we can see what people are searching when they're typing in Google and when they're on the Home Depot website. But it's never something that's 100% perfect. And it's still, to some degree, it's kind of messy.
Well, you're absolutely right. And attribution by channel is somewhat of a red herring. It's somewhat of a false flag, right?
Yep.
Now, if you're optimizing within channel, great. But at the end of the day, if you're being paid or you're held to, did the business improve? That is truly the marker. And so if you think about, you think about sort of agencies, even that get into it and say, well, we don't control X, right? We all say that. It gets in the conversation when we talk about pay for performance, for example.
Yep.
Well, there's
100%.
a lot we don't control. What would you need to control in order to say we're going to drive growth? And if you're being held to growth, not did the print move the needle, did the last click matter, but if you're held to, does the company sell more product through whatever channel? What would you do differently? And I used to do this example when I was running a media agency, but the example I would use with our young teams, I would say, you own a movie theater and you need to drive traffic on Tuesdays. What do you do? And we've sort of lost that because we get caught in the scale. Well, I'm spending $5 billion or whatever the media companies are spending today. And so it becomes this scale, which obfuscates clarity. And clarity is, did Applebee's sell more tater tots? They wanted to sell tater tots. Did they sell more? And I think, I know one of the things that we talk about a lot are dashboards and certainly metrics-driven approach to business. But there's also a real element of, can you ask the right question
Hey guys, real quick, this episode is sponsored by Parison Network. Parison Network is a matchmaking service that connects businesses to marketing agencies that will actually get you results. There's over 50,000 agencies in the United States alone, and picking the right one can feel, well, pretty impossible. Parison Network simplifies the entire process by doing all of the vetting for you. From the initial agency search to interviewing and vetting the top marketing agencies to getting proposals and helping you with the discovery call, Parison Network does it all. This way, you end up partnering with a marketing agency that actually delivers outcomes, not empty promises. If you're ready to stop wasting money on marketing that just doesn't work, visit ParisonNetwork.com and get your free agency search started today. That's ParisonNetwork.com, PERISSON network.com.
Can you push on to say, did the desired outcome happen? Yes, no. And make choices based on that.
I love it. So I want to take a 20-degree pivot a little bit and talk about AI, because it's a conversation we can't not talk about to some degree.
One of my favorites.
And before we hit the record button, you said some things that were very interesting. So one of the things you said is that we live in a world where AI has all the answers, but that means we need to build better humans. What do you mean by that?
So I am speaking on this a lot. And I'll tell you the example I use to frame where we have lost our way a little bit is to highlight, when was the last time you got lost? And I don't mean metaphorically, like driving or walking, where you had that moment of panic and you sort of look up and you're trying to remember where you are. Do I take a left here or right? What direction am I heading? And the answer is either never or it's been a really long time. And what has happened is that humans broadly, right, globally, have ceded our spatial navigation to GPS. And we turn it on when we're walking, we turn it on when we're driving, and it is changing our brains. And it is changing the neural pathways in our hippocampus. And so the ability to spatially navigate, to see a situation, to walking, biking, driving, whatever it is, assess which direction you need to go, where am I headed, where am I in the world, is of the utmost importance. So as we talk about AI having all the answers, and of course it can pass the law exam, it can pass the medical exam, better than humans. The gap between professionals and AI is like infinitesimal, and that's only because of a time factor. The anchor is when AI has all the answers, and AI does, if there is a well-formed question with a correct or incorrect answer, and it doesn't just mean yes, no, it means, is this spot on the MRI likely to be cancer? AI is going to beat humans every time. What AI can't do, and where humans have to anchor ourselves, is in asking better questions, ill-formed questions. And it's why I'm so excited about marketing, because marketing is filled with ill-formed questions. What's going to make somebody care about this product? How much personalization is too much? How much is creepy? What should we not do? Where do we hurt the brand? What levels of friction are really useful? Those are ill-formed questions that AI can't ask and also can't answer. And so as we look out at what is ahead, number one thing, turn off GPS. Look at it, see where you're going, turn it off. And if you have kids, help them learn to navigate. Getting on the highway, are we going north or south? Do you know where we're right about where we're going? We have a printed map, one of those old school maps of Minnesota, on the wall of our playroom, and we point out where we're going for basketball tournaments or whatever. That ability actually helps how we reason, how we problem solve, all those things. But then more importantly, what are ill-formed questions that humans can answer that derive better outcomes. And that is the basis of marketing, and it is where humans will beat AI.
I love that because I think as AI evolves, as it begins to be able to answer more questions, it's our job as humans to do things that AI can't do. It doesn't have intuition. It can't be creative or truly creative.
Yeah,
It can't ask good questions. It's not inquisitive to some degree. It's meant to answer, not to ask questions.
that's
And
right.
so,
And
how do we get to think deeper? Because so much of what we do as humans, especially if you look at the career progression of somebody going through their career, a lot of the times they're pushing buttons and they're not doing the deep philosophy work within their industry anymore because of the way that our society, our economy, the work structure is built. And so I think AI opens up the door for us to be better, deeper thinkers and a little bit more philosophical, hopefully.
I agree. And what I will say is that I've heard a lot of people say things like, well, AI is going to do all the boring stuff so that I can be creative. This is also a false flag. So, back to sort of one of the core anchors, I have 5 counterintuitive recommendations. And one of them is to use AI to make your life harder, not easier. And let me tell you what that means. If you are using AI to write the first draft of anything, you learn nothing. The research is overwhelming. If you are a student and you're writing a research paper, if you are a professional and you are writing a plan and a first draft comes out of AI, you learn nothing. So the premise is creativity comes from understanding the hard stuff. Creativity isn't absent the understanding of the data. It isn't absent of crawling through a spreadsheet and looking for insight. You can use AI to help you parse and to help you think. But what you can't do is say, I'm going to push off everything that I don't want to do, the boring, rote stuff. It's why we have a left brain and a right brain. They are two halves intentionally. And so creativity comes from everything that's boring. So when I talk about making your life harder, one of the most important prompts you should be using is you create the first draft. And that's difficult for even writing an email. Difficult, right? But then you say to the AI, work as my nemesis. Work as a person who wants to see me fail and poke holes. And you set it up to challenge you and because it is a absolute sycophant. It is designed for dependence. Everything you say is so brilliant. Oh, you are an explorer, just this incredible strategy. And we are programmed to believe that. You use it to challenge you and to make you sharper, not to satisfy our base level instinct for reinforcement or praise.
I love this. And I tell people, it's like you need to if you've been talking to your GPT on a semi-regular basis, you need to ask it to roast you. Like tell you everything that you're not seeing. If you tell GPT about your business, get it to roast you about the holes that you're not seeing in the business. If you use it for marketing, same thing. Use it for your dating life of, hey, this is how a conversation went. Tell me why I fucked this conversation up and he broke up with me. Like whatever that looks like. How do we get AI to push back on us? Because you're right. AI tells us what we want to hear. And it is your greatest cheerleader. And that's why a lot of people use it instead of going to therapy, which is a whole nother problem. But it's like you need AI. If AI is pulling all the information from all areas of the internet, yes, it's pattern recognition. That's how it works. But in theory, it's smart. So if you're talking to the smartest person in the universe, would you want them to tell you how great you are? To some degree, yeah. Like I would like to. But if I want to truly get the most out of this opportunity from the 15 minutes that I have with the smartest person in the room, I'm going to ask them, hey, what am I not seeing about XYZ in my business, in my marketing, in whatever aspect of my life? And that's how you grow as a person and how you grow as a business.
That's right. That's right. And so that's how you build better humans. Ask more questions, understand how to spatially navigate, and use it to make your life harder, not easier.
I love that. So, in 5 years from now, what will separate the companies that used AI as leverage, as a thinking partner, from those who just used AI as a tool to get stuff done, to do the boring work?
You know, the short answer is I don't know. And I think
Okay.
anybody that says, I got it, I know exactly what 5 years is going to look like, I don't know. What I will say is that one of the greatest risks facing companies is that we're getting pushed to the middle. And so if you think about, any company, right? You put all your data in, it tells you it's canceling out the fringe, right? That's how applied statistics work. And so it's pushing everything to sort of a middle. If you've spent any time inside of a business school class, you know that being in the middle is the worst place to be. Even if you're Walmart, right? You want to
Yep.
have differentiation. You want to have, and so I think that companies that use it to help them drive differentiation, but don't overly rely on it to sort of solve all their problems, will be able to differentiate, because the efficiency underneath the application of AI is going to be table stakes for everybody. But the question is the efficacy, the differentiation is really where I do believe companies will separate. And I have this theory, could be wrong in the context of I don't know, but I have this theory that as the world gets more perfect, as AI sort of dominates, that we're going to look for evidence of humanity in the mistakes. And we're going to be looking for examples of other people. And so, you think about agents and sort of the agentic rise of what's coming. We're not just marketing to people, we're going to be marketing to agents. And it's going to be agents talking to agents, who are building things with agents. And at some level, the companies that understand the importance of humanity, they understand the importance of how to expose or show evidence of humanity, will be those that differentiate.
It's interesting if we go back a little bit to something you said of getting pushed to the middle, getting pushed to kind of being the average, to some degree, run of the mill company. And you think about like how AI works, and this is something I've been kind of thinking about a lot of, it's pulling data from all these places. So while it can give you good advice and it can be the smartest person in the room, it will still give you, if you're having it be your business coach, is an average business coach. It's not the best. So how do you go? And this is something I have my team working on solving right now. It's like, how do we go tell it, hey, these are the people that I want you to channel, of like, this is the business advice. And if you, all the information of like Tony Robbins is an easy example.
Yep.
If you take his brain, be him, channel your inner Tony Robbins, use only his information, what then would you tell me? And give it like a list of people, or feed it the transcripts from all of whatever influencer, whatever leader you follow. All those transcripts, feed that into your GPT, and based upon these parameters and this set of information, what should I be doing? So instead of going to GPT to getting social media advice, because so if it's pulling from all aspects of the internet, it may still tell you to use IGTV, which got phased out years and years ago. So how do you say, who are the best influencers in social media right now? Get their information and say, okay, you are this person.
Yep.
Now tell me.
Well, and I think that's a really interesting way to cut it. But I will also tell you a story from 1906, which sort of indicates what we need to do and the problem. So there was a guy named Sir Francis Galton, and he wanted to prove that noblemen were smarter than the common man, sort of a yucky guy. But what he did was go to a county fair, I think it was in Plymouth, England, and conducted an experiment where he had people guess the weight of an ox. So nobody was special, right? But they all kind of knew what general. So he had a group of 25 noblemen guess the weight of the ox. And when they were averaged, they were about 250 pounds off. Then he had about 800 common man people, and they guessed the weight of the ox. And the guesses were all over the place. But when they averaged it, they were within 1 pound.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
This is what's happening in AI. The fringe guesses cancel each other out. And so that's what's pulling us into what is the correct answer. Now, where we need to go from here, however, is that teams of people with diversity of thought and diversity of perspective need to create the first draft. So you work in teams, right? And I joke, you work in teams so often it's annoying, because working in teams can be really annoying. But that team needs to actually ideate before you ever bring an LLM into the mix. So you again, and ideate around what are the questions, maybe not even what are the solutions. So what are the right questions, the inputs, and then you bring an LLM alongside, acting as a specific expert or a specific leader or a specific person. But remember, their version of Tony Robbins isn't Tony Robbins. It's only what he said. And so how he thinks or how he processes, it won't be able to replicate. So it's an imperfect approximation, but the team can actually answer, can get within a pound, right? Teams are pretty amazing when they work together. So they ideate the questions, and then you bring AI alongside.
I like it. So, Liz, if you could leave leaders with one very uncomfortable but necessary truth about growth today, what would it be?
It is going to require a tremendously sharp application of judgment. And what I mean by that is everyone's going to rely on GPT or some version of an LLM. And there's going to be solutions brought forth. There's going to be data brought forth. And the ability to say, this is the right path, or here's a solution being presented to me by an LLM, maybe, but I think in our world it should be applied like this. Or this data is telling me this, but I actually think I'm going to do this. The ability to discern what to do, but equally important, if not more important, what not to do. We are seeing this. Everyone needs to do everything at some level. And so really the important thing is, what shouldn't you do now? And that judgment, that sort of ability to assess in a very human way, what is coming at me, what recommendations, what consultants are saying, what agencies are saying, that judgment has to be the most important thing we fine tune.
I like that. I think it can sometimes be hard to figure out which direction should I go. But if you can start with creating a list of everything I know not to do, there's only going to be so many options left on the table. So you're 80% of the way there, 20% chance margin of error. You're going to figure it out or get pretty close.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Liz, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If people would like to connect with you further, what's the best way for them to find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me at lizr@shiftparadigm.com. You can certainly go through our website. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on all the places.
Awesome. For everyone tuning today, thank you so much for joining, and we will catch you on the next episode of Humans of Growth.
Thank you.